All right, so we are recording for a couple of reasons. One, we have it live for some people that will be joining us live, and then we're recording back there too, just because I want to make sure all along this journey that we capture this. Thought about calling like one of those TLCs or whatever, and like, yo, you want to do a show on church planners? But didn't know if that would help our marriage or help the church or what, so decided not to do that. First I want to say thank you for all of you being here. I know some of you are like, hey, we're in, and some of you are like, I don't even know why I'm here. So thank you for every person that is here, for those of you that are joining us as well. I'm excited for what God is going to do, and I thought we'd just start off by just showing a little video of Denver. Some of you guys, how many of you have been to Denver before? All right, so a good many. My wife has only been in the wintertime. And most of this is summertime. So this is good for her to be able to see this because it's a vastly different place in the summer versus the winter. So I'm going to show this, and then we'll kind of continue on with what we're going to do. So. Visit Denver and live there. So that's just a sneak peek. That's something we've put on email that we're sending out to a bunch of churches to try to get us to get some people to come and be a part of what we're doing and supporting us and whatnot. There's a ton of videos like that. We just chose that one. I want this time to be an opportunity where we can share a little bit about our journey, why Denver, and then how God could possibly use you guys to be a part of reaching that city, and then be able to answer any questions that you have. So at any point, if you have questions, just throw your hand up or just interrupt me or whatever. And I'm probably gonna sit down because I feel weird standing up with all of you sitting. So let me just kind of share a little bit of our story. Sarah and I, we've been a part of Seacoast for a long time. I started attending Seacoast when I was 15 years old.
I got saved when I was 16, came on staff when I was 17. I'm 33 now, so I've been on staff for a long time, been at Seacoast for a long time. Sarah got saved at like 15, I think, and obviously we've been a part of the church ever since. It's really the only church that we've known growing up and in our relationship with Christ. And so we love what we do. We love the opportunities that we get at Seacoast and being a part of a church that is making a huge difference all over the world. But about 3.5 years ago, I started having this discontentment in my heart and not sure why. I mean, if you're a part of a massive church like Seacoast and you get all the opportunities that I've been given being at that church, there's really no reason to leave. It's crazy, especially when we live in this place. Sarah was born and raised in Charleston. I was born in Charleston, then moved away for a little bit and then came back. So this is really like all we know. This is our home. So to think about leaving was just crazy. So the discontentment started about 3.5 years ago. And then 2 years ago, Seacoast allowed me to go on a sabbatical. And while I was on that sabbatical, I went up to a little mountain house, and I'm very much a logical person, so I think through like a lot of things. And I know everybody responds in their relationship with the Lord differently. Some people hear him in other ways, but he really speaks a lot through logic to me. So I threw up 3 Post-it notes. I love Post-it notes. Mine were a lot bigger than that. These are like the minute size. But I threw up these 3 huge ones, and I just started writing down. I wrote down 3 different things that I felt like we could do the rest of our lives. One was stay at Seacoast, the other was plant a church, and the other one was go on full-time mission work. And so I just sat down, I wrote down like all the positives, all the reasons to like stay at Seacoast, all the reasons to go plant a church, all the reasons to go on full-time missions. And then I wrote all the reasons not to stay at Seacoast, all the reasons not to plant a church, all the reasons not to do full-time missions. And then I went through each of those and I marked down on the reasons to stay or the reasons to do these things. I marked down all the things that were selfish, that were, basically me motivated. And then I went through the reasons why not to stay at Seacoast or why not to do these other 2 things. And on the church planting, on the missions, the reasons why not to do those 2 things, it was all fear. Everything was based on fear. So as I just sat back and I looked at the list, it seemed pretty clear that Seacoast would be a great place for us to stay. We love this place. We love Pastor Greg. We love what God's doing there. But if we stayed, we just didn't feel like that was probably the route that God had for us in our family's journey. And so it looked like it was either going to be missions or church planting. And when I looked at the 2 of those, there were way more reasons to church plant. There were way more reasons to do that work rather than full-time missions. So, and I think church planting is kind of full-time missions anyways. So came back from that, though, still not convinced. Like it was overwhelming what I should do, but I didn't want it to be overwhelming. Because I honestly, I deal with fear of failure. So thinking about leaving Seacoast and stepping out and doing something like this just gripped my heart. I didn't want to fail. So about 8 months went by and went off to school last January. And up until that point, just multiple things were happening where it just felt like a stirring in my heart for church planting was happening. And while I was at school, one of my professors, he didn't know me at all. I mean, we had just met that week, and he was asking me some questions about, am I a manager or am I an entrepreneur or whatever? And he said, he called him Surratt. He called me Seacoast, and he called Greg Surratt. He said, is he an entrepreneur? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, how about you? And I said, well, currently I sit in the role of a manager. And he said, well, do you want to be an entrepreneur? I said, yeah. He said, do you want to plant a church? I said, whatever. And he said, I think you should plant a church in Denver. Like out of nowhere. I was like, oh, that's awkward. And what was even more strange is the guy behind me, I just told him that I was starting a process, maybe planting a church. And he said, well, where? And I said, the only place that I've thought of at this point would be Denver. And so like 10 minutes later, the professor said that. And I looked back at this guy, and he's like, did you tell him? I'm like, no, that's weird. So that really, that week, God just spoke to me in some major ways like that, and some other ways that church planting needed to be what we decided to step out in faith on. So January 25th of last year, so 2012, I finally submitted to God in prayer and saying, okay, God, whatever you want us to do, if you want us to plant, we're ready. About 2 weeks later, I walked into Pastor Greg's office and told him, and he said, yeah, I've known you were going to do this for a while. It was just a matter of when. I'm like, man, couldn't you have told me? And I called my mentors, and they're like, yeah, we've known you've been going to do this. It was just a matter of when. I'm like, couldn't y'all have told me? Like, I mean, I'd been seeking for, 2 years, 2.5 years at this point, just God wiser, there's discontentment. I mean, I'd fasted for multiple times, 10 days at a time, and it was just, I don't, that's not normal for me. So like, and I was getting nothing. There were like no answers. But finally, it looked like we were onto something. So we just started investigating this whole church planting thing and what it looked like. And the big question that we wanted answered at that stage was where. We felt like that was kind of a big one. The where, the when, the who, and the how were the big questions that we wanted answered. And the where, hello, the where was the first big one, because without the where, it's hard to know when you're going to go. It's hard to know who. Like if I were to say, hey, we're going to go plant a church in Alaska, my wife wouldn't come. So, it's hard to like really pray for who when you don't know where yet. So we just started praying through where, and as we were processing that, the mentors in my life, Pastor Greg, Pastor Jeff, and Pastor Mac all said, man, just pick a place you want to live the rest of your life. And we're like, whoa, that's like, think about that. That'd be awesome to just pick a place you want to live the rest of your life. So, okay, what does that look like? And so Sarah and I sat down at California Dreamin', and we just started thinking about what type of city do we want to live in. So she went first, and she said, I want to live in a place that has water. So I said, okay, so we marked that down. And then I went and I said, I want to live in a place where there's at least 2 sports franchises, preferably baseball and football. Now, there's some logic behind that, okay? Not just because I love sports, but you have to have a large enough city to support those franchises if you have at least 2 of them. So it means you have to have a city of a few million. So there was some logic behind it besides just wanting to go to games all the time. And then she went next, and she said, I want a place that's warm. And I said, well, we have to define that. And she said, okay, well, Denver's the coldest we'll go. So we said, okay, we marked that down.
I said that without going there.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Too bad. I was joking. So then my next one was I want to be in a city that is 85% or more unreached. There's a high population of unchurched people. And then our last one, she didn't have any more. So my last one was a place where there wasn't a lot of thriving church plants or really large mega churches there. So as we processed through that, we came up with a very short list of cities in America. We put Denver at the top simply because I'm a big Broncos fan since I was 8, and so that was easy. And obviously, we'd already had a few signs here and there to kind of point us, like what my professor said and a few other things. And so we put that at the top. We put Miami second because it was the most unreached city out of all the cities that we were looking at, with a evangelical population of 3%. So it was highly unreached. So we went to Miami first, loved it, fell in love with the city. I don't know what you guys think of Miami, but there's a lot of people who really don't like Miami. As we've told, a shortened version of this story, and we've always mentioned Miami, they're like, ooh, good choice with Denver. Like no one wants to go to Miami, which is kind of why we wanted to go to Miami. And so we loved it, and we really just went to Denver out of due diligence. We just said, okay, we said we were going to go to Denver, so we need to go. And what's up, man?
Hey, sorry,
No, you good, dude. And so we went to Denver in late November this past year, early December, and first day was a rough day, just long day of travel. Anytime you go west, it's a long day to travel, and so it just, at least it feels that way. And so Friday night, I was like, well, we ain't coming to Denver, because Sarah was not digging things at that point. And the next day, we went skiing, and we were on the lift, and we just were looking out, and we just saw all these young families everywhere. And in Miami, we didn't see a lot of that. We saw a lot of other stuff. We didn't see a lot of that. Saw a lot of need for Jesus, but we didn't see a lot of young families. Not that they don't have them, but and we just were like, man, it'd be so cool to raise our kids in a place like this. Like where, there were a bunch of dads teaching their 2-year-olds how to ski, and it was just a really cool, really cool moment for us. And so we just started exploring the city a little bit more. And at the end of the time, we loved Denver too. And so as we were praying about it and processing, we really felt like the Lord said, you're going for the right reason. So neither city's the wrong city. So just make a choice. So as we looked at that, it became pretty clear that Denver was the right choice for multiple reasons. One, Denver is more of kind of who Sarah and I are than Miami is. Denver is, a lot more young families and stuff like that, so it was just a different culture there. There would be some bigger challenges with Miami in regards to the culture, in regards to like one of the billboards that we saw when we were down there. It said, cheating, use one of these, and had a picture of a condom. It said, cheated on, get a free HIV test. So it's just, the mentality is just like way different down there. Like a lot of things are very acceptable. And honestly, one of the things I wanted to do, you can't protect people from every sin, but if I could protect myself and my sons, and any other guys that went with me as much as I can from the sexual temptation that's found in Miami, Denver was a better choice. Miami, they barely wear any clothes. Denver, you have to wear like 6 layers of clothes. So, so it's a little bit better. So we, and then biggest thing I think for us is it seemed like God was stoking a fire in Denver for us. When we went to Miami, we visited a church, and honestly, it was like being in heaven because there were so many nationalities and so many different languages being spoken. It was just awesome. Like it was so cool. It really felt like we were in heaven with just all the people just praising God from different places. But that was really about it. It was a church that was doing really well, and they were like, hey, if you come, it'd be awesome. We'd love to have you. Whereas in Denver, immediately there were multiple churches that said, hey, we'll open up our place. You can come come and speak at our place. And if any of our families want to go with you, they can go. One church was like, hey, we want to bless you financially if you come here, and bless the church financially. So it was like, okay, God's doing something. And Pastor Greg has always taught that don't ever ask God to bless you where you're going, but find out where God's already blessing and then see if he'll let you join you there. And so I felt like God was already stoking some fire there for us, for what this could be. So why not see if God would let us join him in that? Not that he's not stoking fires in Miami. Sarah and I love that city so much that one day we'll do something there, even if it's just simply give money to a church planter. We want to do something in that city because we feel like the need is so great. But God was stoking a fire in Denver. So once we said yes to Denver, God started confirming all these different things and just really confirming the decision that we had made. And at that point, we were going to be staying at Seacoast till May of 2014. And we just started having conversations with Pastor Greg and with Pastor Jeff and Jack Hoy, the greater. And it just became apparent that if Pastor Greg, him and I were sitting down, he said, if Denver's your destination, you need to get to your destination as soon as possible. So we bumped up the timeline to move this summer, which honestly freaks me out. We have 2 months before we leave this house. We have to sell this place. We have to raise money. I mean, there's all kinds of things that need to happen. But at the same time, there's no greater time to test your dependency on God and to trust him. Sarah and I were driving home from an ARC assessment on Friday, and we were just talking about the house and how it hasn't sold. And we just were like, God, this is yours. Like, you told us to do this, so you better come through on this one. Like, there's no pressure on me to sell the house. Like, there's no pressure on Sarah to sell the house. The pressure is all on him. It's all on him. Like, if he's telling us to do this, you need to work out the details, bro. Like, that's the reality. And so we trust him to do that. And so what a cool journey for us to be on, to be able to be testing that faith and whatnot. So the question that we've been asked more than anything else has been why? Like, why Denver? Why another church? Why go plant? Why leave Seacoast? Why does Denver need one more church? I mean, there are some great churches in Denver. There really are. There's some incredible things God is doing. Pastor Jeff was saying, Ernest, you're coming at a time where it'd be like you're on the front of the wave that God's bringing to Denver. I mean, God is already doing some amazing things in that city. So why one more? Like, why do we need to have one more church? And so as I was processing that, I thought, okay, here's a question I want to throw out to you. I just want to write down some answers. In one word, what is one word that would describe your life before Christ? What's one word that would describe your life before Christ?
Boring. Chaotic.
Empty.
Blind. Yeah.
you say yeah? Oh. I thought you said yeah. I'm like, okay. Do I have a second?
I'll say angry. Purposeless.
Any others?
Comfort.
This is good. I'll probably steal the word my wife used when I asked her the question, is wandering. Just kind of going from place to place. So as I thought through that question, I thought, 17 years ago, I was all of these. I was boring, I was lost, it was chaotic, life was empty, I was blind, I was all of those things. Every one of them characterized me when I voluntarily stepped foot into a church for the very first time. The 4 or 5 other times I'd gone to church, it had been forced by my parents, or one was forced by a girlfriend. Outside of that, I never voluntarily walked into a church. And I walked into this church, and it was a church plant. It was a 7-year-old church plant that I walked into. And honestly, I don't remember the message that day. I don't remember anything about the message. I don't remember any songs that were played. What I remember is the guy in the parking lot who was helping park cars. I remember him smiling. I remember as I walked into the doors, I remember there were ladies at the front doors that opened the door and they welcomed me. I had this overwhelming sense that no one in that place was judging me at that point. And that was different for me because at that point, I was a 15-year-old kid who was very lost, very hopeless. I was a labeled alcoholic, and I was up to at the point of hopelessness where I'd try to commit suicide. And so, being on drugs and being on alcohol and all that stuff, and I knew judgment was going to happen. My buddy had been inviting me time after time after time, and I kept saying him no because people at church don't accept my kind. Like that's not how we roll. And I didn't know that. That's just what I assumed. And so, but there was this overwhelming sense that the people there did not judge me. And again, I don't remember anything else. I don't remember anything that happened that day except for the people. And as I thought about that, I thought, what was started in that place 7 years earlier was started by that guy parking, was started by those people at the front. We're starting by, all the people that made that church what it is, and that church is Seacoast. And it was a 7-year church plant at that point. And Sarah and I have talked multiple times, what if Pastor Greg would have chosen to plant Seacoast an hour and a half north? What if he would have said, we're going to go to Myrtle Beach? Now, I don't know what would happen with Seacoast. I don't know what would have happened with our lives, but I'm going to bet money that if we are Christ followers at this point, her and I probably don't know each other, and our kids aren't born, and there's a really good chance that we don't know Jesus. So what if he would have said no? What if God would have called him, and he would have said, not right now? And not only my life, but many of your lives have been radically changed because of Seacoast. And not only that, we were sitting at the ARC training this past week, and there were 120-something pastors there, and then for the assessment, there were 37 or 38 couples that were being assessed to plant churches. And I thought, man, how many hundreds of thousands of people have had their lives radically changed because of Seacoast? Pastor Greg started the ARC. Pastor Greg started Seacoast. Because of his faith and the faith of his wife, they went out and they said, okay, we're going to start a church where there's a need. There's a huge need, and we're going to start a church that's going to be the type of church that people want to come to because there are those people in the parking lot and those people at the front that don't judge, that love people, that care about people. And so not only was my life radically changed, but the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of people, their lives have been radically changed because of one person stepping out or a couple stepping out in faith. And then I thought, if I was that 15-year-old kid who could be listed as that, what if there was a place where the majority of the people, that's how they could be characterized? What if there was a place where 88 to 95% of the people were blind? What if there was a place where 88 to 95% of the people were lost? What if there was a place where 88 to 95% of the people were wandering? Well, that place is Denver. 88 to 95% of the people don't go to church, which means 88 to 95% of the people don't know Jesus, which means 88 to 95% of the people are lost, are hurting, or broken or wandering. Pastor Jeff, he says that they're happily lost. That's a good way to phrase it because Denver is a great place to live. Amazing place to live. Beautiful place to live. They're happy, but they're so lost. And you got Denver, it's this place where it's the second most educated city in the nation. So you would think that they would have some things under wraps. I mean, they would be pretty good at some things, right? But the teenage homeless population is one of the highest in the country. The sex trafficking, it's one of the hot spots for sex trafficking. I was talking to Lisa Surratt, who oversees A21, and she was saying because of the gangs that are in Denver, that's where a lot of them take the victims of the sex trafficking. And then they go elsewhere. So this girl that really helped to expose sex trafficking in South Carolina, she went first from Mexico to Denver, and then from Denver to Charlotte, and then Charlotte to Columbia. And then the whole situation was exposed. But Denver's a hotbed. And they say that anywhere from 10 to 30% of the teenage homeless population is stuck in sex trafficking right now. That means there are upwards of hundreds of kids, of teenagers, that are trapped, that are stuck in a population, that are stuck in a culture that doesn't take notice, just kind of looks past them. As I thought about that, I thought, man, I was a 15-year-old kid who was hurt, who was wandering, who was lost, who had run away from home before. I was a 15-year-old kid who was looking for something more. I could have been there. I could have been in the same situation. And what if God were to use us to make a dent there? What if God were to use us to help bring some hope? You see, I believe that the only way that the sex trafficking stops, that the homelessness stops, that the marriages crumbling stops, that all the things that we would say, yes, we want that to stop. The only way all that stops is a guy by the name of Jesus Christ coming into their lives and radically transforming. There's not going to be any good political justice that does a whole lot of good for a city. Ultimately, it's Jesus Christ that changes the city. It's Jesus Christ that changes the people, and when the people change, the city changes. But the only way, or not the only way, but the greatest way for Jesus to be proclaimed and for evangelism to happen, the number one way in the U.S. for that to happen, for Jesus to be made known, is through church planting. The number one way. Not missionaries coming from somewhere else, not even us going on little mission trips to different cities in America. But church planting is the number one way for people to hear about Jesus. So then it's like, if Jesus is the only way to do something about the 88 to 95% who are wandering, who are lost, and if the best way to help people meet Jesus is to plant a church, then it's a no-brainer. We got to plant. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, Ernest, what if a large church called you and said, hey, we want you to take over this church? Would you do it? Specifically, what if a church here in the South asked you to do that? And I said, there's no way. Why? I mean, there would be comfort there, and what if you got to still hire your team that you wanted and all of that? I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Because to me, I keep looking at a stat of 88 to 95% of the people who don't know Christ in a city. And my heart is drawn there. I want to do something about that. A year ago, when I prayed the prayer of God, okay, we want to go wherever you want us to go, it wasn't like we were waking up thinking about Denver all the time. We probably were just like many of you who are like, man, I just want Jesus to be proclaimed. So we just had to go through a process of figuring out where, and I'm so glad God drew us to this place. That we can actually make a dent in a city that is at the crossroads of a lot of things here in America. I mean, a lot of stuff goes through Denver. Denver's got a lot of power. Denver's got a lot of influence in this country. And we can be used by God to make a dent in that place. And so why not? When people ask the question why, it's a no-brainer. Because there's 88 to 95% of a generation who's lost, who's hurting, who's homeless, who's broken, who's stuck in sex trafficking, whose marriages are ending, whose children have very little hope. I don't know if you watch the news a whole lot, but over the last year, how many tragedies have come out of Denver? A ton. It's unbelievable. It's really mind-blowing. It's like, is there like a spiritual oppression over the city? I don't know. I don't know everything that happens there, but what I do know is that there's a huge population that doesn't know Christ. And if the greatest way to help them meet Christ is to plant a church, then God used us to plant a church. And I believe that God wants all of us, I'm not going to lie, all of us, to be a part of that. Because honestly, a church isn't successful by the preaching. That helps. Church isn't successful by the amazing music that we have, although it helps. A church is successful by the people who have a vision to reach a city. And who will say, you know what, I want to be used by God. And I'll remain humble and I'll remain obedient, but I want to be used by Him. If I've got to park cars, let me park cars. If I've got to hold the doors open, let me hold the doors open. It wasn't Pastor Greg, it wasn't Jan, it wasn't anybody else that day at Seacoast that kept me coming back. It was the people, the normal people, who were just willing to accept me no matter what I was going through. And so I believe that God wants to use you for the same purposes. And I was thinking about it today, and I was just thinking, you know, out of this group right here, I didn't know everybody that would show up, but I was just thinking, man, out of this group, like how God's going to use us. Like if you chose to go, how God could possibly use each one of us. I mean, there's some of us who are musicians, and Denver is one of the most artistic towns in the country. I mean, it's got a huge arts program, huge. I mean, it's unbelievable how much they've done to the downtown to really draw in the arts. It's such a cool, cool place. Tons of musicians, tons of artists who need to be reached for the gospel. Denver's got, I don't know how many hospitals, but a ridiculous amount of hospitals. And there are nurses and there are doctors who don't know Christ, who need other doctors and nurses who know Jesus to tell them about Jesus. There are people who are in schools. There are college students out there. There's seminary students. Maybe they know Jesus, hopefully. But there are people who are in graduate school who don't know Christ, and they need people who are in that stage of life to tell them about Christ. Denver is a thriving place for young entrepreneurs, for businessmen. And they need businessmen who know Jesus to come out there and tell them about Christ, to help them know Jesus. Denver has one of the largest Hispanic populations in the country. Right now it's about 30 to 35%. And I was talking to a guy the other day, and I don't know how true this is. I don't know where he got a stat from. So, you know, they say like 85% of stats are made up on the spot anyway, so it's good, including that one. But they say that I heard it by 2015 that 50% of Denver will be Hispanic. So I need Hispanics who can reach their generation, their population, their demographic. I'm looking at you, brother. We need people who are willing to fight the injustices. Not because injustices need to be fought, but because Christ needs to be proclaimed so that people are set free. And it's great what God's doing here with A21 and with, you know, there's so many different missional communities that are being lived out here, and that God's doing some incredible things. Why wouldn't God want to use you to do that same thing in Denver? Why wouldn't God want to use you to help get that girl out of the sex trade? Or to help that homeless person. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're a leader of a large organization in Denver that helps homelessness. And they're doing so much good stuff, and yet they can't keep up with it. There's just so much out there. There's so much brokenness. There's so much hurt. There's so much poverty. So why wouldn't God want to use you? Now I understand that there's a cost. Okay, there's a cost to everything. There's a cost to going. And I want to tell you, I validate that. I understand that. I understand that there's a cost for every person that's thinking about and praying about going. I mean, Sarah and I understand that very well. There's a cost to move. There's a cost to find new jobs or to create new jobs. There's a cost to leaving family or friends. There's a cost to going to an unknown city, not sure. I mean, a totally different culture. In the South, most of the people are de-churched, which means they've at least heard about Christ. They've at least experienced church at some point. They just don't like it. Now, there's a totally different culture. So there's a cost to that. And I validate that. I understand that you're processing through the cost in your life. But I'll tell you, Sarah and I also are sacrificing stuff in our lives. Like, I'm not asking people to sacrifice if I'm not willing to sacrifice. I mean, Charleston's all we've known. And we're leaving that. Her parents live right around the corner. Her childhood best friend lives literally right around the corner, both of them. And my mom lives right here. My dad lives right here. My sister lives 2 hours away. Her sister lives here, her 2 brothers live here. It's not going to be easy. Can't find free babysitting everywhere. And family. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I mean, we've only known Seacoast. I mean, that's the place we met Christ. That's the place Sarah and I met. That's where we got married. That's where that's where Wyatt was dedicated. It won't be easy leaving that. It won't be easy leaving what we know. So I validate the cost that you would have to spend for this. But just as I was reading a book a few months ago on church planning, the guy Darren Patrick, he came and spoke at Seacoast a couple months back. He said, don't ever say that you're having to sacrifice something when you're involved in church planning. Because you're getting to put, the reality of what you're getting to do is you're getting to be a part of the greatest journey that God could ever have you on. And when you think about the cost, the sacrifice, it's nothing in comparison to what Jesus gave up for those people, what he gave up for us. And so, yes, there is a cost. I validate that cost. But I believe it will be the greatest journey you could ever go on in your life. That God will use you in such incredible ways to reach the people who are just like you and the people who are far different from you. I can't wait till we're 5 years in and we're going, man, there's a Christina right there. Or there's a William right there. Or there's a Pablo right there. Or there's an Emily right there. Like, who knew that 25 years ago when Pastor Greg planted Seacoast, that all of us 25 years later would be sitting in this room thinking about the same thing? Only God is big enough to know all that. And God is big enough to triumph over whatever cost you have to pay. He is. He's big enough to do that. He's big enough to restart your businesses. He's big enough to help you find jobs. He's big enough to help you make the payments. He's big enough to sell a house. He's big enough. And God cares way more about those people than we ever can. So God's just simply looking for people who are willing to go. God, whom shall you send? Lord, send me. Lord, send me. I was thinking about the story in Gideon where, Gideon's got his 300 and he's up against multiple armies, and he starts off with 32,000 people. And God says, hey, everybody that's fearful, leave. Get out of here. I don't need you. So 22,000 leave. That's a lot of people. You start off with 32,000, you're facing an army of tens of thousands, and now 22,000 went home, you're down to 10,000. Gideon's probably like, oh, junk. This is not going to be good. And God says, no, I'm not done with you yet. I'm going to make this group a little bit smaller. And so here's what I want you to do. I just want you to go down by the water, and I just want you to drink. Just do what you do. As he did that, he observed there were 2 types of people that were drinking. There were those who got down, and they just drank like this. And then there were others who lapped like a dog. I'm not performing that one for you. And there doesn't really seem to be a difference between the two. Like, God doesn't say this one's right, this one's wrong. The scriptures don't tell us that. But as I processed that, I thought, so then what was it? And I think he chose the people who lapped like a dog. And how many were there? 300 out of the 10,000. So he chose the people that weren't going the same direction as everybody else, who weren't going to do the same thing as everybody else. Those 10,000, they weren't scared. They just weren't willing to go against the grain. They weren't willing to make the changes. They weren't willing to leave the comfort. This is what they always do. This is what they do. I'm not scared, but this is what I do. And I thought, how appropriate is that for us? Because most people would never even be sitting in this room, much less getting in a U-Haul or in a car or whatever and drive 2/3 away across the country to meet a group of people they've never met before to help them meet Jesus. Most people would never do that. So I'm praying that you would be a part of the 300, that you'd be a part of that group, that God would say, okay, you're not scared? Are you willing to go against the grain? Are you willing to be different than most other people? As I thought about a few thoughts, let me just give you a couple thoughts real quick as you're processing. Bless you. Commitments are harder to keep the longer they are. I'll just give you a few random thoughts. Commitments are harder to keep the longer that those commitments are. Meaning, if you say, Yes, we want to come to Denver, but we're not coming for 5 years. I'm probably not going to see you in Denver. That's the reality. If you say, yes, I'm coming to Denver, we'll come out in a year. There's a small possibility I'll see you in Denver. If you say, yes, I'm going to Denver, I'm coming out this summer, I'm probably going to see you I'm probably going to see you in Denver. I'm not saying everybody needs to move this summer. I'm just saying just keep that in mind as you process through whether or not you want to go. Commitments are a whole lot harder to keep the longer that they are. That's just the reality of life. You don't know what's going to pop up at any point. You don't know who could possibly die. You don't know who could possibly fall in love with somebody. You don't know any of that stuff. And if you sense that God is saying go, go. Go. Number 2, the quicker you get there, the more ministry opportunity we'll have. That's like a no-brainer. Like, if you're here, it's harder to have ministry opportunity out there. Doesn't mean you don't have ministry opportunity here. It just means the quicker you get out there, the more opportunity we as a group have. So just think through that. Number 3, anything can change. Anything can change. Anything can change with a church plant. Anything can change in your life. So again, if you sense God saying go, go. Count the cost. The Bible's very clear on that. But just because the cost is high, don't say, I'm going to wait. Be willing to go when God tells you. Number 4, Denver needs you. Denver needs you. Every person in here, I firmly believe that. Does Charleston need you? Sure. But I firmly believe that Denver needs you. That 88 to 95% of a population needs you. Needs you to help tell them about Jesus, to live it out, to show a community. You know, I think that God will use us in such a way that people will be able to see what authentic community looks like. And I think that's different than what a lot of places experience. You know, a buddy of mine, he lives out there, and he said, man, and I won't say this is true for every place in Denver. This is just true for his experience and where he lives. But he said, man, there's no community here. He said people come home, they press the little garage door opener, and they roll the car inside, and they press it and close it down. They stay in for the night. And there's just no community at all where he's at. And again, I'm not saying that's truth for every place in Denver or every place in Colorado, but for where he's at, that's truth, at least in his opinion. And I think we could be a generation, we could be a group of people who show authentic community in a new way. We show people, hey man, this is kind of what you're missing. This is what you could be a part of. So Denver needs you. Denver needs business people. Denver needs young people. Denver needs old people. Denver needs simply people who love Jesus and who want to share the faith with other people through their words and with their actions. So Denver needs you. And then the last thing that I want to encourage you with, and this is probably the greatest encouragement that I'll receive during this whole process, is that when you are thinking that God is going to give you an opportunity like this, just know that there will be temptations and there will be challenges. That with every opportunity that God sends your way, there will be major temptations that will face you, and there will be major obstacles that will face you. And so for Sarah and I mean, there's some obvious obstacles. I mean, selling a house is an obstacle. Starting a church from scratch is an obstacle. I mean, I think this past week I was told that 85% of church plants fail. 85%. That's a major obstacle. Honestly, I don't want to have to be calling Pastor Greg up in a couple of years and going, hey, can I have my job back? Like I love my job, but I don't want to have to do that. That's not why I'm going to Denver. I'm going to Denver to see people reach for Christ. And to me, I believe that God wants his church to succeed. Like, why wouldn't he? If he didn't, then, I mean, what we do is pointless. Like, he wants his church to succeed. So I believe he's going to, as long as we stay humble and we stay obedient, I think he's going to do mighty things. But know that there are going to be major obstacles. There's going to be financial obstacles. There's going to be relational obstacles. There's going to be all kinds of obstacles. Sarah and I have faced many of those so far. We've faced financial ones. We've faced relational ones. It's not easy when you make a decision like this. So there will definitely be obstacles, but there are also temptations. Anytime you have a great opportunity from God, there will be temptations. There will be, well, what about this? Well, what about that? For Sarah and I didn't really process that. I didn't really think through that part. And then literally, we decided on Denver in December. And so I set up a meeting with Pastor Greg and went to Starbucks, and and said, hey, we've chosen Denver, and he was excited for us. I mean, Pastor Greg has been so supportive during this whole time. It's just been incredible. And he said, let me just throw out something else to you. I'm like, huh? He's like, let me just throw out another city to you. I'm like, another city? Why didn't we talk about this like 9 months ago? What, huh? And he said, I was just thinking about it, and I thought, why don't you just plant downtown? I was like, that's a curveball. Like, you talking about downtown Charleston? Like, if he would have offered that to us 10 months earlier, we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. I'd be like, yo, anybody want to go to downtown? That one's pretty easy, We would have chosen that in a heartbeat. I mean, honestly, because it would have been with family, it would be all these different things. But the process that God took us on made it very clear that he was wanting us to go to Denver. But there was major temptation there because it means we get to stay in our comfort. It means we get to stay near our family. It means we get, who knows how much Seacoast. I mean, we probably could have launched with one of the largest church launches ever because there would have been a ton of Seacoast people who said, hey, we'll help you out for a season. And we could have gone down there and launched with, I don't know how many people, but a ton. Like, it would have been not easy because I don't think any church plant is easy, but it would have been easier than Denver. And so I remember I was like, thank you so much. It's such an honor you would think about that. And, we'll pray about it. And I got home and Sarah's like, huh? And it was easy for us. It was like, no. No. It's not what God's saying. It was a temptation, though. And so with every opportunity, there will be obstacles and there will be temptations. And so if God is calling you to go, if God's saying, yo, you need to go help reach these people, then there will be obstacles. There will be. And there will be temptations. But if he's saying go, then go. Be willing to take a leap of faith. I want to end with just one passage, and we'll talk through questions and all that good stuff. This is a passage that I used to use a whole lot, but I use it from a different angle. You do that with Scripture. The angle that I used it from was I was a youth pastor. And so I would always use this with the leaders that God had blessed us with. I firmly believe that God will only bring you the amount of people that you can effectively minister to. Like, God's not going to, I could be way wrong, but I don't think God's going to, like, if we get out there and it was just me and Sarah, I don't think the first day we'd show up and there'd be 2,000 people because we can't effectively minister to 2,000 people. It's just not a possibility. So I think the more workers you have, the more people can be harvested. I think it's a pretty biblical principle. And it's Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 through 38, and it says this, and Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. Now catch this. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Now stop right there. They were harassed and helpless. By who? Not by each other. Not like people were picking on each other. They were harassed and helpless from the attacks of the enemy. And you look at what is happening in Denver and all the bad stuff that I've seen, at least over the last year, it seems like there's a people group there that are harassed and helpless in a lot of ways that the enemy is just going after. It's just going after. So Jesus sees this and he has compassion for them. Verse 37, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful. That means the people who want to come to know Christ and who are going to come to know Christ, there's a lot of them. But the laborers are what? Few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. So how I used to use this is I used to say, guys, there's a ton of students out here in this community that need Jesus and that want Jesus. They just don't know it yet. And they're going to come to know Christ. But we need more workers in here. We need you to be inviting your friends and be inviting your small group people and all that stuff to come help us in this journey. And let's be praying for that. So I'd constantly be praying for new leaders, praying for new leaders, praying for new leaders. And about 3 weeks ago, I was reading this passage, and God said, you're the laborer. And there are people in Denver who have been praying for you. I thought, holy cow. That's a whole nother side of the ballgame. Like, there are people in Denver that are praying for you. that are praying right now, that have been praying for years that you would come. That's incredible to me. Like people that I've never met and I may never meet have been praying for you, Wes. I've been praying for you, Steve. I've been praying for you, Matt. I've been praying for you, Emily. I've been praying for you, Joshua. I've been praying for every single one of us to come and to be a laborer. Why? Because the harvest is plentiful. People want Christ. They want him. We all do. But where are the workers? And will you go? Will you go? Is there a cost? Sure. But what's the cost if we don't go? Maybe we lose nothing, but other people lose everything. So maybe we be the people who say, God will go. In the Old Testament, people didn't wait around for this. Some people did, and they lost out on some blessings, but most people didn't wait around on this big, God, I'm looking for this huge sign. It was a, God, do you want to use me? In the New Testament, you rarely see that at all. People waiting around on anything big. It's like there's a mission field and I need to go. Paul didn't wait around on anything. So may we be that generation that goes. May we be the people who go out and reach the harvest and not wait, not hold back, because there's a generation whose their life is boring, they're lost, it's chaotic, it's empty, they're angry, they're purposeless. A generation who needs Christ. So people have been praying to the Lord of the harvest to send the workers. And I believe we are the workers. Pray for us. Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for your word. God, I thank you that, God, you have had people in Denver for years praying for us. God, I believe that there have been people in Denver praying for us before many of us ever knew you. God, I can't even understand that. God, I'm thankful that you have allowed me to take part. God, I didn't have to sit around waiting for a big sign. I just needed to know that there were people somewhere else that needed you. And God, I thank you that you are already igniting a fire in Denver. You're already using some churches in some incredible, incredible ways, God. You're sending missionaries there. You're sending church planters there. God, you're sending teams there to reach the population for you. God, I thank you for that. I thank you that you are allowing us to be a part of your work. God, thank you for Seacoast and for the other churches that are represented in this room. God, thank you for the impact that they've made in our lives. And thank you, God, that the same Christ that those churches helped us to meet is the same Christ we get to proclaim in Denver and help other people meet. And God, I thank you that 25 years from now, that there's going to be a group of people who are sitting in somebody else's home who are talking about what this group of people did when they came to Denver, how that changed their life and how now they're going to do the same thing. God, thank you for that. Thank you for that, God. Father, may you use us. God, I thank you that the harvest is plentiful. I thank you that people want you. They just don't fully understand you or they don't know you. God, I thank you that you want to use us to help them come to know you. So God, give us the desire, give us the willingness to be humble and to obey. God, I think those are the two things that you keep telling me, to be humble and to just simply obey you. And God, you will work out all the details. You will repay the cost that we have to pay. And God, even if you don't, you've already paid that cost so much more than us. So God, I just pray that you would give us wisdom on what we are to do now. And God, ultimately, you would be blessed and that you would be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen. So that's my speech. So I want to say, I'm going to shut this down. If any of you are out there, goodbye. I love you. I want to open it up. I'm like really hot. Is anybody else hot?
That's just the Holy Spirit, bro.
Amen. Get up, get some food, drinks, whatever you want. I want to answer any questions that you may have. I know there's probably a lot of questions, and anytime you need to leave, get up and go. I wanted this time to be an opportunity for me just to share a little bit about Denver and vision and everything, and then for you to be able to ask questions, and then for us to just get some time to hang out with one another. There's some of us in this room who are fully on board already, and there's some who aren't. And so for those who are, I just want to give you guys opportunities to meet each other. So as people are thinking about where to live and all of that stuff, we can be processing that as a group. So any questions?
It takes Johnny 10 hours to paint the fence, and it takes Neil 6 hours to paint the fence. How long does it take him to paint the fence?
Did Neil actually paint the fence?
That was a fun question.
I do have one.
Yep.
I know that you said, well, to me personally, that you're looking to plant in the suburbs.
Yep.
Which ones are you looking at?
Good question. Here's my philosophy about that. I love the poor, and I love black people. So if I had to choose where to plant, I would plant downtown Denver in the poorest of the poor. However, that's not sustainable in the long haul. So we're going to do very similar to what Seacoast has done, and we're going to plant in a community that's pretty well off. And then from there, you can launch campuses to other places or churches to other places. So right now, we're looking at south side of Denver, either the Parker and Arapahoe area. So you can look up Parker. Parker is a huge area, but you want to look up Parker and Arapahoe. There's an intersection there. In a 3-mile radius, there's like 60,000 people in that area. In Denver, what you'll find out is that by far the majority of people are Caucasian. And then in downtown Denver, in the city of Denver, then you have 30 to 35% who are Hispanic. And then I think there's 11% who are African American. Throughout the metro area, I think it's more like 8% who are African American. So they just have a lower population of African Americans, but a very high population of Hispanics, especially compared to a city that's not near a border. I don't know what God's doing there to draw, but he's doing something cool. So Parker, and then the other area, the one that's high on our list is Castle Rock. Castle Rock was voted third best suburb in America or something like that. It is an awesome little town. Awesome little town. So it's growing. It's growing at a rate of about 425% right now, which means that they're having about 90 people a month moving in. A month. It's exploding. And it's got massive outlets right there. So. And there's an IKEA. That's true. Oh yeah. Everything you ever wanted in a city, Denver has. There is a Trader Joe's?
It's like not on the south side, but as long as it's
Drivable, yeah. As long as it's within like 3 days, I'm good. Good question. We're going to make that decision possibly before we move or once we get out there and start driving around the streets a little bit. But Castle Rock definitely is the leading contender right now, just because of the possible growth.
Those two are pretty close to each other, right?
Yeah, Parker Arapahoe area is about 15 minutes, maybe max, north, closer to the city.
What about Centennial?
Centennial is awesome, but it's right beside Southeast and will be some type of partner with Southeast, and I don't want to plant right beside them.
Fair enough.
So there are, Sarah and I were talking about it yesterday. There are, I don't know, probably 4, maybe 5 churches right now that have said, hey, we want to do something in Castle Rock. So if you do something, then we want to help, which tells me that that's where the leaders in the church community think that there's a need and that there's great growth. So Parker, everybody likes Parker area, but Parker is very landlocked, which means you can really only grow up at this point, at least the Parker and Arapahoe area. So Castle Rock's got so much land. It's crazy. Good questions.
What about a launch date? Has that changed?
Yeah, so we'll get out there in July, and this definitely could change. So it's changed like 15 times in the last like month or maybe week. What we're processing right now is we get out there, and then we start doing like some seeker Bible studies within groups. So what we'd love to do is have like whoever, like let's say 25 of us say we're gonna go. Then what we'd love to do is go, okay, these 5 you live over here. These 5 you live over here, and we strategically live throughout the community so that we're not all in one place or not all really, really randomly spread out. But we try to live as close in groups as possible, and then we infiltrate those areas as much as we can with just love and presence and all of that. And then through that, we start like seeker Bible study type things. So like your area would have one, the Cloders area would have one, the Stickways area would have one, that type of thing. And then we do that as well as some core team stuff, not core team, but like launch team stuff, visiting other churches and whatnot for about 6 months. And then we have our first preview service in May. And then we launch September of 2014. The reason for that, my personality is a type to launch immediately. The reason for that, though, is, and it could be moved up, but the reason for that is March is the #1 snow month in Denver. And if it snows on the weekend, you drop your attendance in half. So if we start, the ideal was to start in February. But if we start mid-February and then March, like this past March, they got 2 weekends that got hit. A buddy of mine's church just laid off 6 people on Tuesday because they were hit so much by snow that they didn't have enough cash reserves backed up to be able to maintain salaries. So they literally just let go of 6 people this past week because of the snow hitting on the wrong time. Really, it's because of poor financial management, in my opinion, but that was an aspect of it. So I don't really want to start and then get hit hard. It's a gamble. And so I was just talking to a couple of guys out there, and they said, if you're going to launch in September, and obviously there's no way we can launch this September. It just takes way too much. And then they said, one of the things I liked about thinking through that process is if we launch next September, then when we get up on stage and we tell people who we are, we can say this is a church of who we are rather than this is a church of what we want to do or who we want to become, because we've already been doing that for 6 months, 9 months, whatever. It also gives people time to get out there and kind of get acclimated and settled rather than getting out there and jumping straight into everything. So it gives a little bit of freedom there for people. But my thought is if all of us are doing our job in evangelism and really reaching the people around us, then we'll have to do a soft launch January, February, because we'll have too many people to meet in our house, if that makes sense. So we easily could be starting in January if evangelism happens like it could. So, but Denver's a very hard culture to crack. So all the guys out there have said, dude, be patient. This is not like you're planning in Atlanta or anywhere else. Be patient. So it's just, that one's hard for me. Being patient is not easy. So, especially with something like this. Good question. But that could change tomorrow too. So that's our plan right now.
So do you have any names in mind for the church, or just?
Yes, but
First Church of Ernest Smith.
yes, that one.
We do Ernesto to try to get more of those.
Yes. First Church of Ernesto. Yeah.
Hey, where is the Red Rocks place, the outdoor concert venue? Where is that?
It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's like northeast?
Perfect.
Northwest,
First
sorry.
service there.
Yeah, yeah. Amen, amen. Everybody just drive up, it's all good.
You're in charge of getting that coordinated.
Don't put Neil in charge of anything.
Do you have the thing?
Yeah, it's in the truck.
Grab it real quick. Will you grab it real quick? It's awkward right now. So Neil put together a sheet to help with acclimation. Denver is really high, like a mile high, and not just because they've approved pot, but because it's really high. That will be a response station, just so y'all know. Is this still recording? Okay, good. Yeah, you can get real close. Jesus? No, that's Johnny. So getting used to the altitude out there is like a whole different ball game than it is out here. There is no altitude here, so it's pretty easy. So Neil actually, he's put together a program for us. If you want to take one of the sheets, you can just kind of look through it to like things to be thinking about to try to acclimate yourself to it. It really is different. When we got out there in December, man, walking up a flight of steps, I was at the top like, oh, holy crack, like it was rough. But if you prepare yourself for it, it'll be fine. Lots of water, drink lots and lots of water. That's the biggest thing. But Neil's got a whole sheet on it that's pretty good. So.
And also driving cross country will help too, because you'll slowly get higher and higher.
Yeah, but you're not doing a whole lot of, unless you're getting out and running every once in a while.
No, it definitely helps though, because I've run from 3,000 to 8,000 feet,
Yeah,
and I lived in Arizona, drove from like the valley up to Flag.
and it helps
That's
them.
a lot.
That's good.
And we still can't breathe though.
Yeah. You still might die.
I had a question about church attendance up until I did sophomore just for March. Are we all going to be meeting as a house church up until then, or are we going to partner with another church and all attend one service?
That is to be decided. It probably will be like a house church type thing. But what I would like for us to do too, though, is like say, okay, Caroline and you and you four, you're going to be in charge of our children's. We want you guys to go visit this church to learn about their children's ministry because they knock it out there. And Brittany, you and Anna and Emily and whoever, y'all are going to go check out this church because they're great at worship and we want to see. So what we want to do is learn from the different churches and how they do things to best reach the people of that community, because it's just different. It's just like the culture is just vastly different. So we want to have that availability too. So we may do something like Sunday nights together as a group, and that's where like if we got too large for that because people are coming in, then we could do a soft launch somewhere. So does that make sense?
We're thinking about renting out an area at first.
Yeah, probably at first. It just depends on. We definitely won't buy anything. So Plum Creek's the largest church in Castle Rock right now, and so if it works out, good timing. They're building a location right now, and if they move out right when we get in, then we can rent the movie theater, which is where they are. So we could already have the residue of, oh, I didn't know this was Plum Creek. Yeah, no, this is Ernesto's church. Welcome. So that would be perfect timing. Yeah, they're building. They're like 1,500-ish, and the next largest church in Castle Rock is The Rock, and they're about 1,000. So, no, yeah. Huh?
Ironic name.
Yeah. They're actually the church on the Rock, I don't know, but they just call themselves The Rock. Yeah, something, yeah.
Like a rock.
Chevy. Call our church Chevy. Ernesto's Chevy.
Ernest Neal has bad news.
Did you save money on your car insurance?
You know that thing that I was supposed to.
All right, I'll send you guys a document. I'll send you a document. That way you can print it off yourself if you want. The good thinking, because now they can just keep it on their iPhone or their iPad. We didn't have to waste trees. You're thinking about Colorado already. Being environmental. That's good. Smart man. Oh, never mind. You didn't do anything.
Here, for those of you not. This is how you get acclimated to.
Open up.
Pablo, Kelly, thank y'all for coming. Good seeing y'all. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
I have a question real quick. You
Yeah.
said, or you mentioned earlier about strategically placing people to live. For those who are going in the fall, should we just be in contact with you?
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, most people who've said they're going to go are going to go sometime in the next, or from like July till September-ish. So what I would love, I mean, as soon as you guys know yes or no, I'd love to know that, so I can, because we're going to have a meeting on the 25th of this month for everybody that is definitely in. We're going to have a meeting on the 25th. So, and I'll send you out an email, huh? What? Sorry. What? Yeah. So it's a Saturday, I believe. So we're gonna have that, and then there we'll kind of discuss some of those logistics. And Wes is coming up with a game plan for some of that as well. So as soon as you know, as soon as you know if you're going, yes or no, and then when, let me know that as soon as possible. That way we can start thinking through people and teams and all that stuff. So, sound good? Good question.
So is the church going to provide the pot, or is that something we're going to have to buy?
Yeah. Well, I think you can grow 6 yourself. So if we all grow 6, we'll be good. Did you have a legitimate question?
With Neil.
No. What?
I have a question. Does Neil have to go?
Can we block somebody from coming? Oh,
You were talking
Neil.
a while ago about that dinner you were going to try to do in a couple months. Is that still looking like it's going to be a good opportunity to raise some funds?
I think so. We've had, just 2 weeks ago, we had, I think 5 churches say that they're going to support us besides Seacoast. So I think so. I think we'll get it. And I've got another guy right now that's praying about it, and he's got a pretty decent sized church. So I think it'll be a good turnout. I hope we'll be able to send, there's like 13 ARC churches out there. So I'm hoping we'll be able to send a letter to them from Pastor Greg as well, saying, hey, but we're trying to work out all those details, see what that looks like as well. Because it's hard to, the ARC gives you money. So then to ask money from ARC churches when they're already giving money just can be a little weird. So we're just trying to see if that's the best option.
13 ARC churches in Colorado?
Colorado. Yeah, there's one ARC church in Castle Rock. So I'm meeting with that guy. I'm going back out there at the end of this month. So I'm meeting with him.
It's fairly small.
I think so. I'm not sure how big they are. I think he's been around for a while. So the rules on ARC are you're not allowed to plant within 15 miles, I think, within the first 3 years of that church's plant. So they're well past that, from my understanding. So
Is it definitely going to be an ARC church?
Yeah, 100%. There's another network that we work with out of Lake Point Church in Dallas that they're going to, I'm one of their partners as well. And then there's another network in Denver that I'm one of their partners as well. But the ARC will be kind of the launching pad for us.
How about Bread of Life? You gonna move that in November too?
Yeah, we'll have a branch here and there.
Okay.
Yep, definitely. Got to keep the bread of life.
Keep it.
Any other questions?
Is that 6 inches per household, or is that per person?
The what?
You're talking about the, marijuana.
Six.
Oh,
6
6 plants.
Oh,
6 plants. Yeah, you're
They can
good.
be taller- They can be taller.
You're good. I think per household.
per household.
Yeah, but that could be pretty tall, I think. I hear if you grow it upside down, you can get larger plants. But I just heard that.
You get the cozy-
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I should probably turn the camera off.
Oh,
Shark kisses one day.
oh yeah. It's gonna be interesting. I've never lived out of the Bible Belt, so it's very liberal out there socially. I was reading something the other day, and the guy said the church in the future must become more conservative on God's word, but more liberal on social issues. So that's going to be, we're moving into a place that is that, maybe not the conservative on God's word part, but they're definitely social, very liberal on social issues. So like marijuana and gay marriage and all of those things. So it's going to be vastly different than Charleston, South Carolina.
People snowboard in their bikinis.
Yeah, that's true. They do a bikini contest in the mountains. It does sound cold. Yeah.
Something else to throw out, I guess depends on the timeline that people are going, but maybe if there was a way that we could keep track, if people plan to visit, I know that can be like cheaper and more comfortable in groups, so if
Yes.
we could figure that out.
Yeah.
That would be, or just to make it known, I guess,
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah, and two, we can like, as we know when people come visit, like once we're living there, as our friends and family come visit too, like it'd be good to have some type of system set up where, okay, you guys know me and Sarah are gone, your parents are coming to town, they can stay at our house, you know, that type of thing. So we can kind of share responsibilities and resources like that. Yeah.
Where's the airport in Denver? Side of town?
East
It's like,
is what?
it's like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you fly in, you feel like you're in the desert. You're like, I thought there were mountains here.
That was one of the places somebody tried to suggest for us to plant because they were supposed to be, they're supposed to be really building that area out because there's nothing out there. Denver is exploding. I mean, it just is, it's growing. They have 2.9, best figures I can find, 2.9 million in the city area, but metro, which they consider like Colorado Springs to Fort Mill, is 4.1 million. So,
That's the population of the entire state.
yeah. And the only place they can grow at this point is east. So, east and, in those areas, they can only grow east.
Is it true that the runways look like a swastika from the air?
I don't know. I was too busy looking at the mountains and worried about the turbulence. The wind comes straight off the mountains, and your plane comes in like this, and the mountains are here. So it's like, it's fun. If you've ever flown into Dallas, it's very similar to that, even though Dallas has no mountains. It's weird. Cool. Okay, so the 25th. We'll have a get together here, and that'll be a lot more centered around us as a community because that'll be people who go, yes, we're definitely in.
Is that the weekend of Memorial Day?
Yes.
No. Is it?
Memorial Day's on that.
Oh,
Monday.
crap. Mm,
I'm gonna be in New York that weekend.
okay, let me look at possibly changing that. It's based around her work schedule, so that's what we're looking at.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Could we change it to the 18th? I know you were. Could,
We can do it at night.
yeah, that's what we're going to do.
That's no consultant.
Yeah. We got to get ready. We got to acclimate ourselves. Huh? Probably like 6.
So are we going?
We'll go, everybody go with the 18th, or most people go with the 18th? All right, we'll do the 18th.
You asked the question but didn't give any.
You work till 7, right?
Anytime I'll get home tonight.
I'll just set everything up for you.
That is true love.
Yeah. Yeah, if somebody will help me, we can do the 18th. Johnny. Manny.
My wife.
It's not that funny, don't laugh.
He's such a good Manny.
It's not that funny. Yeah, I had wife running into people last night. Great.
He calls for Mr. Brandon and Mr. Manny.
He does.
He says Johnny.
He does say Johnny. He likes Johnny. Cool. Any other questions? You guys are easy. Either none of y'all are going or you're.
What are your theological positions on, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
To all of the above.
I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but
Probably not.
how, in the long run, your vision, how will the church look similar or different than Seacoast? I'm not asking like what you do or don't like, but maybe
Yeah.
if there's something.
I would say it would be, I think the direction that the church should go should be a mixture between attractional and missional. And I think Seacoast is very heavy attractional, and we're just trying to get the missional going. So I think we can be a church that starts with both heavily. I think we'll actually be starting more on the missional side. That's why I like the longer runway of us starting up, because it really allows us to really get the missional going well. Instead of us saying, oh, we're going to be a church that's missional, we're actually already a church that's missional. I don't think we'll have I could be way wrong, but I don't think we'll really have a problem doing the attractional well, because most of us have grown up in that attractional model, so we know how to do it well. It's the missional that I don't know if the church as a whole, Big C Church, does very well. And out there, people move to Denver because of the mountains. They didn't move because of jobs or anything like that. They moved for the mountains. So a Sunday attractional service is only going to hit a very minority of the people, because that's just one more day they can go to the mountains. So we have to be more missional. So to me, it would be similar to Seacoast in that I hope and pray we'll have a very attractional weekend stuff or midweek stuff or both. But I think it'll also be very, very missional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you expand on missional? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so
Since Seacoast doesn't do that as well or isn't as strong, like, what does that look like?
basically it's helping people identify their giftings, their strengths, and their passions, and then putting that to use in the community, in the culture. So say, for example, Sarah and I were talking the other day. She found this thing in a magazine. Not this. We're not saying this is what she's going to do or whatever, but this is an example of it. And it was like this: moms using. There's this like workout program where moms can like bring their kids, and you use like the stroller and everything to like do the working out. Well, that's like brilliant for moms who have young kids because they can't go work out. But what's the population that wants to work out more than anybody else? The moms who just had kids. So it's like, that's brilliant now. So if Sarah or whoever else decided, hey, this is something I would love to do, then they would be the ones organizing that. They would open it up to the community, and then the community would be coming to that. And through that, they're building relationships. Now they're going and having play dates, they're having coffee, stuff like that. And through that, you're inviting them to church or helping them meet Christ. So it's really trying to take your passions, your giftings, and your strengths and allow you to run with things. And I think the Big C Church has this program mentality, like, oh, what do you want us to start? Okay, we'll start that mom's thing. And so we start it, then we hire somebody to run it, and then it's like, that's dumb. Like, if that's your passion and your vision, then let's figure out how to support you in that and develop you in all that, and then run with it, and we'll do whatever we can to help you with it. There's a great app called Meetup that would encourage everybody to have if you're going to go out there. And on that, you can put any group you want. So you can start an ultimate frisbee at Sunday afternoon game, and you can put that on the Meetup, and then anybody that goes on there, they say, oh man, there's ultimate frisbee in Castle Rock at 4 o'clock on Sunday. And so then random people just show up, and then it's like you're already built. So the missional community thing, the world's already like establishing for us. It's just the church actually has to get on board with it, so does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that, to me, that's the way to empower people more to do what God's calling them to do. And I think we've made too many professional Christians, and it's like, well, you work at the church, so you let me introduce my friend to you. It's like, yeah, but you know Jesus as well, and they like to cook and I don't, so you go cook with them, or whatever. So, mm-hmm.
I have a question. I was just thinking about, since First Wednesday kind of had me thinking, because that was the message where like Pastor Greg was talking about like elders and overseers and stuff like that. And I'm not sure about church plants. Like, is that something when the church like officially launches that is important to you to have like a framework of like, do you want like elders or overseers or like specific roles, or is that something that develops as you like grow as a church? Or?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that's a great question. One of the ways that I've thought through it is, so you have like, this would be me, and I would be the lead pastor, and the people that are in my flow, that's the staff. So I hold them accountable, and I make the ultimate decisions. Now, if I'm a good leader, I'm going to allow them to make decisions and all of that. But I'm the one that ultimately, if we're at a standstill, I can go, well, this is what we're going to do, and I hold them accountable. And then from there, I see us kind of having two groups. You've got trustees. What? What'd you say? Pokeball? Oh, Pokeball.
You're welcome, Johnny.
From there, I see us having trustees. That's the people who really operate our finances, that I'm accountable to them, and they make the final call. So, like, all I can do with them is I bring them the ideas. They don't come up with the ideas. I come up with the ideas, but they're the only ones that can vote on the ideas. And the same thing with the elders. So the elders aren't making decisions. Like, they're not the ones bringing up ideas for the church to go in, but they're the ones making the final decision on some of the things that I bring to them. So I could bring them ideas on staff. I could bring them ideas on building stuff, on moving locations, on a lot of different things. They will make the final call. So I'm accountable to them, and they make the final decision, if that makes sense. And then, this could all change, but I really like this as of right now. And then from there, there's overseers, and the elders and trustees are accountable to the overseers, and they can only bring ideas to the overseers, and the overseers will then vote or not. They make the decisions. The only thing the trustees, I don't even know if they'll bring anything to the overseers. I haven't thought through that one yet because I don't know why they would. But elders, the biggest thing they can bring is firing me. And the thing I like about elders is that they provide protection for me and for the church. So they keep me accountable. They're on the ground. They're watching me. They're listening to things that people are saying and whatnot. And so if they think, we think Ernest is cheating on his wife or whatever, they can actually do something about it. The way a lot of guys have set up their structure is they just have these overseers, and the overseers are guys that are like miles away. So like I could be totally cheating on my wife, and like no one's going to call me to the surface because no one has power to do anything. Whereas these elders, besides my wife, so the elders, they will keep me accountable. They can bring it to the overseers, but the overseers have to vote. And what that does is that keeps these guys from gaining too much power. So if 4 out of the 6 guys, I don't know how many people would be on this team, but say 6 people on this team, and 4 of them have kids in the youth ministry, and we go through a tough season, we have to cut the budget for a youth ministry camp, and they get mad at me and they want to fire me now. And that honestly happens in a lot of churches. And that's why I've always been scared of elders, because I've gone to CSU and then I've gone to Liberty. So all you hear is these like deep Southern Baptist thoughts of elders. And I'm like, I don't want any part of that. So it's like these elders who get this power trip, and so they're able to fire the pastor for no reason. Well, if they want to fire me, they have to take it to the overseers, who are guys like your dad, Pastor Greg, other guys like that, and they will then take all that's been brought to them and make a decision from there. So they could fire. The overseers are the only ones that can actually fire me. But the elders keep me accountable, and they will make the decisions that I bring to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
are you thinking of elders being like people that are in this team, or?
Possibly. I think depending on how quickly we grow and like how close we all become in that first season out there, we possibly could do that. Most church planners, if they start with elders, if they have elders, they wait till 2 years in. So that the overseers I can choose right now, and I will choose pretty quickly. And so I could have them governing things until we put in our bylaws to, at this point, then our elders will vote on elders and all that. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to pick. I want it to be congregational vote. So if we feel like we're at a place where we could all vote and say, hey, let's choose 5 elders, then that's fine. We can choose 5 elders, and I'm okay with that. But if we're not at that place, then I would have my overseers oversee everything for a short season, and then when we feel like we're ready, then we can vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The overseers cannot be voted on. The elders can be. The trustees will be chosen by me, because those are people who are the high money rollers, hopefully, in the church. So the guys who, like, when you have a budget of $3 million as a church, they're not like, oh, that's a lot of money. I'll be like that, but they'll be like, dude, wait till you get to 50 million. Like, that's when we'll start talking, so, but most people won't know who those people are, unless they're rolling around with bling or something. Peyton Manning, that's right. John Elway, baby. We're going to have John. John's going to be on our launch team.
We're not called Seven Church.
I'll call whatever they want if those guys will join us.
Broncos Church.
Call it the Broncos Church.